This is Dr. J. Lee Noose, and today I'm going to teach you how to calculate the population standard deviation and the sample standard deviation from start to finish, step by step, starting with the blank Excel workbook. The first thing I'm going to do is create a little variable, which I'm going to call U, and I'm going to populate it with some data. Now, being a little lazy, I don't feel like copying stuff in, so I'm just going to have Microsoft Excel put some random numbers into a little data set for me. So right to the right of home, you'll see a little thing that says formulas. I'm going to click on formulas. And then you're going to see this thing, math and trig. I'm going to copy this. And if you scroll down, you're going to see under R, you're going to see RAND, R-A-N-D. And what that does is that puts a random number in it. Just if you want to play around with Excel and you don't feel like copying stuff down, just make Excel do the work, And you'll notice that it says over here, it says, this function takes no arguments. What that means is that even though you have parentheses in here, you don't have to put anything in. All you have to do is click OK, and you get one random number. Now, I don't want one, I want a bunch of random numbers. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this little mouse pointer thingy over here, and you see how it turns into like a plus sign or crosshairs, whatever you call it. This is called the fill tab. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to just make myself some random numbers, right? I just stuck it in there. Now I have a data set to work with. And so if you want to play around with this and you don't want to spend time copying stuff in, now you have a data set to work with. Okay, so what I want to do is I want to show you how to get the population standard deviation and the sample standard deviation. Now, I'm just inserting a row in here just so I have room to write population standard deviation and sample standard deviation. Now, if you have to make a report for your professor or somebody, you might need the symbol for population standard deviation. And that symbol is a Greek letter sigma. You go to insert and see all the way on the right where it says symbol. And if you see to the left of this word symbol, this is a Greek letter. It's the letter omega. So I'm going to click on this. And if you see under subset, it says Greek and Coptic. I know sigma is a Greek letter, so I'm just going to insert this. And we have it. That's the symbol for the population standard deviation. And the symbol for the standard deviation is a lowercase s. It's not an uppercase s. It's a lowercase s. So, I want this here just so you see how to get it in case your professor wants you to make some kind of a report or your business wants you to make some kind of report. And that's what it is. So I'm clicking on this cell once. And then what I do is I click on home, if it's not already there, and you go back to this formulas. You click on it. Now, here's the thing. Microsoft hides the statistics under more functions. And here's a little way to remember it, right? I tell my students this. If you want to remember where Microsoft hides the statistical functions, you remember it this way. If you know statistics, you know so much more than the rest of the population. So it's under more functions, and you click on it and you get statistical. Now, if you scroll down to S, right, you'll see what you have, LMNOP, QRS. You'll see we have STDEV, which stands for standard deviation, and it's .P and it's .S. So I'm sure you're probably realizing that .P is the population standard deviation and .S is the sample standard deviation. So let's click on the stdev.p. We click. Now you'll notice we have number 1, number 2. These are called arguments. But the way Excel works is you're going to click on the first element of the data set. You're clicking and then you're letting go. And then you click again and you hold it and you drag it all the way to the last. And then you release it. And then you hit OK. And that gives you the population standard deviation. And all that means is you have the entire population. So you're assuming this data set represents the entire data that this is the whole population, right? In practice, you rarely use this. It means the mean is actually known, and you rarely use this in practice, but you'll use this in a stats class every once in a while. Now let me show you how to get the sample standard deviation. So you click on it once, and then you click on the first element of the data, or you don't even have to. You could just leave it here. And then you go into formulas. And again, the way you remember statistical is in more is that if you know stats, you know so much more than anybody else. You go into statistical, and we go to S, and we look for standard deviation. And here we have stdev.s for sample. Click on it once. Click on the first element in the data set. Click again, holding it. Holding it, go down, release it. Then you click OK. And that's the sample standard deviation. The sample standard deviation assumes that this is a sample from a population, and the population mean is not known. That means that the population mean has to be estimated using the sample mean, which is adding up all the numbers and dividing by the number of numbers. Now, a little thing you'll notice is that the sample standard deviation is greater than the population standard deviation. It will always be this way. And that's because when we estimate the population mean using the sample mean, we lose 1 degree of freedom. And that means here the denominator would be n. Here the denominator would be n minus 1, which represents a loss of 1 degree of freedom. So the denominator is smaller. And if the denominator is smaller, the fraction is larger. And that's a little detail as to why the sample standard deviation will always be larger than the population standard deviation.